Hey, folks, welcome back to the Carl Zahn Show. Man, we have a lot to get to. There is a lot going on. Before we go into our usual little show, though, this week, we did a extra little post-production clip this week, all put together by a burgeoning local film writer and director, my son Mitchell, who did a great job. But what we wanted to do was show people the unprecedented buying power of unrealized capital gains. This has been in the news lately because Harris Walz want to tax us on our unrealized capital gains. So they're going to tax us on money we haven't made yet with our investments in our stocks and so forth. So I hope you enjoy this and take it to heart that if you have unrealized capital gains, just watch what your buying power might look like. Hey, thanks for letting me see your car.
Yeah.
My name is Todd with 1D.
Marcella.
Oh, Marcella, good to meet you.
Good.
Boy, it's gorgeous. How come you're getting rid of it?
I just feel like it's got too much carbon. I actually created the storm Helene.
Oh, the pollution.
Of course.
Oh, that's all right, man. I mean, I doubt that you killed more than one or two people with this car.
That's John Kerry. I think John Kerry convinced me I have.
Actually, why I'm buying it is because I don't collect them. I buy them to dispose of them because they pollute so much and there's so much toxic masculinity. I rip the engine out and put a big battery in, or sometimes I drive them to Al Gore's house and we crush them with a solar-powered car crusher.
Oh, wonderful.
Yeah.
Well,
so you've got a deal. By the way, I'm going to pay you with unrealized capital gains. So as soon as I realize those capital gains, I'll give you a call.
What is that capital gain?
You know, they're unrealized, but as soon as they're realized, I'll call you and send you a check. And then once they're realized for you, you'll have to pay taxes too.
Is that a good deal?
Yeah, I think so.
Oh.
Thanks.
Yeah.
Nice car.
Well, okay. Okay, wait. I'm a little confused. I don't know if it's a... Anyway, can we talk about...
Okay, so there you go. You see, I bought a 68 Camaro convertible with unrealized capital gains. I mean, I kind of bought it. I think the seller was chasing me, and of course, I'm in the car, so there's no way he could catch me. But I mean, I've got the car, and I bought it with unrealized capital gains. So I hope you enjoyed that, and we may do that little weekly video series on an ongoing basis here. We'll see how things go. So as always, hit the like and subscribe button. We're trying to grow the channel here. We got to backtrack a little bit, as always, since this is a weekly thing we do here. And have to talk about the vice presidential debate, even though that's kind of past the news now, but super, super interesting. Everyone knows I'm a big J.D. Vance fan, and I thought J.D. did just fantastic, as I expected he would. He's measured. He's super smart. He doesn't need teleprompter or notes. It's just all right there. That's how actual, true intellect looks, by the way. And despite the fact that the moderators were essentially two Nurse Ratchets from One Flew Over the Cuckoo's Nest, I mean, to the point where it was almost like a Saturday Night Live skit, even despite that, he did very well. And I think, to be fair, I think that Tim Walz held his own. But Walz was kind of a weird combination of like the Tin Man and the Cowardly Lion from The Wizard of Oz. He was a little bit of Bert Lahr in there with the, can we just go home? And then the Tin Man, 40 years ago, I was chopping wood and it began to rain. Just very odd combination of nervousness and disjointedness. And of course, as is always the case with the liberals and Democrats, no substance to what he had to say. It's just blather. And then quickly, of course, the moderators who said we are not going to fact check went right into fact checking. And it's not really even fact checking. What they were doing only to J.D. Vance, of course, was they talked about the hurricane and the weather and, climate change, and that Trump thinks that climate change is a hoax. And J.D. explained, no, we don't think it's a hoax. We just think it's ridiculous that our response to climate change is windmills and solar panels and buying oil, shutting down our own fossil fuel industry and buying oil from Venezuela and all these other countries who don't make any effort to curb their pollution and sell all this crap oil. And China, of course, which pollutes just unbridled pollution. So no, Trump and conservatives don't think climate change is a hoax. We like clean air and clean water. We just don't want to throw the baby out with the bathwater in pursuit of that. And we want to do it in a intelligent, pragmatic, reasoned, and measured way. That's the difference. But to get back to the debate, it's not really fact-checking. She just snuck in this thing that, by the way, every scientist in the world thinks that climate change is man-made. Let's move on to the border. So it almost had a game show type feel where the moderator, one or the other, would slip something in to, correct JD, but it's not really correcting. It's inserting their version of the truth. And then it was like, let's move on to breakfast cereals for 500 points. It wasn't really fact-checking. It had like a game show atmosphere. And I was glad that on the one occasion that JD really pushed back hard on that was when they were talking about the Haitian immigrants in Springfield, Ohio. And one of the moderators at the end said, by the way, the 20,000 Haitians are legal migrants. And he said no. And she did everything she could to keep the steamroller going and not let him counter that, but he wasn't going to have it. And he said, these people are not legal. They used the Harris-Biden immigration app, as ridiculous as that sounds, which grants you temporary asylum. So you're not a legal citizen. It was a way that Biden and Harris made it easier for people to get in here on temporary asylum, avoid the whole border thing and the court thing and all of that. So it's not the same as legal citizenship. So all in all, I thought JD rocked in the debate. That was the overwhelming, impression from most people who are reasonable. But I will give credit to both of them. I thought it was civil, and it was more like what people expect to see a presidential debate look like, where, yes, there's people, both sides were firm in their positions, but it was civil, and even a few touching moments of decency, which doesn't hurt. It's interesting watching everything that's happening here and how tight the numbers are, because it just seems like things are really aligning for Trump with Elon and RFK Jr. and so many things happening that would point reasonable people to this other direction, putting politics aside. But that's not really happening. The numbers are still very tight. And I maintain, and I have on this show, that it's because for Harris-Walz people, this is not an election, it's a tantrum. There's two very different things. An election is whose policies make most sense, whose policies will be best for the country, maybe not even me personally, but my kids, further generations, but the country. You think of the country. And that's not the case here at all. It's not an election, it's a tantrum. This is all about hate Trump, hate conservatives, hate the Constitution, hate the First Amendment, hate the Second Amendment. They hate all of it, and they don't even care if they hurt themselves in the process of it. It's really, really wild time in American history. Here where I live in southern New Hampshire, there's just Harris-Walz signs everywhere, and we're not going back, vote blue no matter who. Hate has no home here. I mean, people are just completely unhinged over it. And when you look at the Harris and Walz, just from a capability standpoint, there's no contest. I don't know how you really, other than being completely emotionally deranged, I don't know how any American could support Kamala, I have to use all three pronouncements to be sure I don't get deemed racist. Hey, KKK. You have to overlook her, stunning ignorance to be able to vote for her. There was a clip just a day or two ago where her teleprompter shut down, and if you're paying attention, you've seen it. And she goes from this lucid kind of, medium stride if you were riding a horse, and then all of a sudden the teleprompter stops, and she is quite literally a deer in the headlights and starts talking about, I think it was Michael Jordan is number 32, and there's 32 days left to the election, and as she mentions the number 32 like 14 times in a row, but there's this also long, awkward pause in front of a live crowd. And I'm sorry, but you just look at that and you go, this is the woman who's going to run the country? Be president of the United States? Like your teleprompter shuts down and you're suddenly helpless? Helpless. I mean, come on. It is insane. And then her complete lack of self-awareness. She went to the border last week for like 20 minutes. It's her second time she's been to the border in 4 years. And she goes there wearing a $62,000 gold necklace. I mean, talk about out of touch. That was also odd because I remember Willie Brown saying that she preferred the pearl necklace. But nonetheless, she showed up at the border wearing a $62,000 gold necklace, more than the average American makes in an entire year. And then in the wake of this devastating hurricane damage, which everybody knows about, by the way, is just stunning and heartbreaking. Trump was down there first, as any leader should be. He got in touch with Elon Musk to try to set up Starlink to help them out with communication. So as a real leader would do, he's there, he's on the ground, he's looking for solutions. She shows up a week later and tells people that they're going to get a check for $750. Okay, these are people whose entire town got swept away, hundreds of people dead, and probably hundreds of more that may or may not ever be found. And she goes down there and essentially offers them a Dunkin' Donuts gift card. I mean, the lack of self-awareness is just stunning. It's breathtaking that you could be that socially stupid. There's no other word for it. She's a stupid person. It's like being at a social event and your 7-year-old says something awkward and you want to put your head in your hands and crawl out of the room. Every parent's been there, She is like that over and over again. She's like the gift that keeps on giving. And then on the wake of this, as everyone has heard now, she tells Mayorkas, says, well, FEMA's out of money. We don't have money. They just sent another $8 billion to Ukraine last week. And now they're saying that the FEMA money was used for housing illegal immigrants, all kinds of benefits for illegal immigrants. They said this morning that their excuse was, well, there's 2 buckets of FEMA money. And one bucket was used for helping illegal immigrants, putting them in luxury hotels, healthcare, everything else for illegal immigrants. And then the other bucket, much smaller, no doubt, is for Americans, and especially Southern Americans from red states whom they don't care for very much to begin with. It is appalling beyond belief. FEMA is the Federal Emergency Management Association. Immigration is an emergency that Biden and Harris created. It's not a hurricane. It's not a flood. It's not a tornado. It's not an act of God. It's an act of 2 incredibly stupid leaders who put the country in this position where we have 20 million people here. Millions of them are criminals, hundreds of thousands of known terrorists, and at the same time that our veterans are sleeping on sidewalks, they are literally getting stepped over as illegal immigrants walk into their federally subsidized luxury hotel room. It's incredible. And so if you mirror all of this against the poll numbers that show the country 50-50, how else do you explain that other than it is a tantrum for half of America? It is a Trump derangement tantrum stomping their feet. No, no, no. There's no other explanation for it. It's so graphic, the contrast between the policies and the people. Put Tulsi Gabbard beside Kamala Harris and tell me who the deeper intellect is. Put J.D. Vance beside Tim Walz, as we just did, and tell me who the deeper intellect is. Down the line. And so if we don't win 30 days from now, all these dire predictions, but I do believe it will be a dire turning point for the country, without question. But don't forget who put us there. I really think something is coming for this country. I think regardless of who wins, it's going to be a very, very negative response from the losing team, whichever team that is. I think it's going to be very, very a very big turning point in this country. I don't think the losing team is going to take it well, no matter which way things go this time around. And it is hard for me to believe that there's any argument between the capabilities of these two very different sets of policies and administrations. We're just coming off of 4 years of Kamala Harris. Joe Biden himself came out a few days ago and said, oh yeah, she's inextricably linked. She's been part of the whole thing. Odd time for him to be coming out and saying that. I know a lot of people think that he's deliberately throwing her under the bus. I don't think he's clever enough to do something that cunning. I think he's just a dope. And what he's basically is trying to tell the country is, she's fine. She can run the country. She's been running the country for the whole 4 years that I've been spent 40% of his administration, 40%, almost half, on vacation. And we may have been better off if he just spent the whole time on vacation. He got questioned last week by a reporter about whether or not he should have been in Washington during Hurricane Helene and the devastating damage that did to at least 6 states in this country. Devastating. And his answer was, I was on the phone for 2 hours yesterday. I mean, this is Joe Biden. He actually thinks that was an adequate response. He thinks that being on the phone for 2 hours in the wake of a hurricane that devastated 6 states in this country. And the only reason is that they don't care is, let's be honest, is that these are mostly southern states, mostly Trump supporters, and mostly red states. Biden even said a couple days ago, he said, we're even giving aid to the red states, as if that should somehow even be a consideration. Again, like the tone deafness, I even gave a lollipop to your autistic child. It's like one of those things that someone would say of mixed company, you just want to put your head in your hands and crawl out of the room. We're even giving money to red states. That's fantastic because those red states pay most of the taxes and do most of the heavy lifting in this country when it comes to work. As Tucker Carlson so often points out, we pay 70% of the taxes, that 40% of America, but we're the guys who keep the lights on, we keep the streets paved, we drive the cement trucks, we dig the holes, we're the ones out in blizzards putting power lines back up. These are the hands-on blue-collar workers of America that actually have calluses on their hand and know how to fix and repair things and actually do things. And We have gotten routinely shit on for 30 years. That's exactly how Donald Trump came into the picture in the first place. Again, Democrats haven't figured that out still. And that's exactly why Donald Trump can bring anywhere to 20 to 100,000 people to Butler, Pennsylvania in this amazing rally this weekend. Just amazing. It was like a big day-long event with multiple speakers, very touching tribute to Corey Compentore, the firefighter who got fatally wounded at the last and first Butler rally. I just thought it was an amazing event. Thought Trump was fantastic. I thought his tribute to Corey and Corey's family was just really touching. Elon Musk came out and spoke. I mean, they just had tons of speakers, opera singer, a very Trump-esque event in every way. But I'm not sure how, as an American, you look at that and find anything about it offensive or anything about it that would trigger you. So again, we're in a very strange place in this country. The level of hatred is really through the roof. And I think what's finally starting to happen is that the conservatives, who normally are more mannered, I believe, and more mild-mannered and more likely to just keep our mouths shut and not want to make waves, I think that side is, and I can say it to myself as well, I think we're getting a little tired of getting stomped on. I'm getting a little bit tired of keeping our mouths shut. And I think something interesting is about to happen here. So much stuff going on. We will be staying on top of it, at least for the next 30 days through the election, because, again, very, very fascinating times. As I said, the debate I thought was spectacular. J.D. Vance, again, especially given his background, how he came up, how he used or allowed America the opportunities that this country provides to people and used it in the best possible organic way to propel himself. I just think his political future is made. I believe he'll be president someday, one way or the other. And I think, again, that he was just a fantastic a fantastic choice by Trump for VP. And we were quickly, before I close, wanted to talk about that particular pick by Trump. So Trump did not go for the low-hanging political fruit of picking a transgender black woman for VP or a woman or some, he goes by qualification. And if you look at the vice presidential picks, really since Obama chose Joe Biden, it was complete usury. Because you would think that Barack Obama, as a first black president, would have wanted to double down on that and say, well, I'm going to pick a black woman to be my vice president, or some other, ethnic group, underrepresented ethnic group. But no, he chose Joe Biden. And then Joe Biden chose Kamala Harris, and then Kamala Harris chose Tim Walz. So to me, it's kind of like, if you remember those Swedish nesting dolls we had when we were a kid, like the dolls, you take a doll off, then there's a smaller one. You take that one off, they're smaller. The vice presidential picks since Obama have been like reverse moron nesting dolls, where you start with a small doll, and then you lift that off, and then somehow there's a bigger moron. And then Kamala Harris picks Tim Walz, like another less nesting doll, reverse moron nesting doll. Where you take that off, there's a bigger moron. Like, whatever possessed her to choose him? Well, we know exactly what it is. Same thing as Obama. The white guy, the approachable, benign, harmless white guy, right? He's the plain donut at the donut shop. It's the same usury that Barack Obama used. Kamala Harris, first woman vice president, and first woman, possibly black woman president. Why wouldn't she pick another black woman for vice president? Why wouldn't she pick one of these underrepresented ethnic groups that they're crowing about all the time? Because with the Democratic Party, That's a good one. With the Democratic Party, it's all about usury. It's the political equivalent of a P. Diddy freak-off. They don't care about anything. They care about power, retaining power. That's why Barack Obama chose Joe Biden, whom he hates with the deepest hatred you can even imagine. It's pure usury, and Joe Biden allowed himself to be used gladly, just like a P. Diddy freak-off. And then Kamala Harris was chosen by Joe Biden, a guy that she had called a racist, had said all kinds of derogatory things about during the presidential campaign. And then she turns right around and gladly lets herself get used by Joe Biden, just like a P. Diddy freak-off. And then she chooses Tim Walz, who's supposed to be the normal white guy. I was a high school teacher, benign, little harmless Tim Walz, who she uses, and he allows himself to be used just like a P. Diddy freak-off. I'll tell you what, we need like a Costco, never mind the 1,000 bottles of baby oil, we need 1,000 boxes of antibacterial wipes, because what a heavy disinfectant we have to do here. And just in closing, I want to say, it always sounds trite when we say you're in our prayers and all of this for the people down south. Yes, you're in my prayers. It's truly heartbreaking. And I'm so ashamed of this current administration and their lack of a FEMA response to these people. If you look back to any national tragedy in the history of this country, as recently as a few years ago, the massive earthquake in Haiti, we had the entire 101st Airborne there in 2 days. Haiti, overseas. Our own Americans in this country, we're still waiting. It is shameful beyond belief. And if anyone watching this can still vote blue after seeing that response, and you know that there's a political motivation underneath it, without question, but I don't think that's all of it. I think it's like J.D. Vance has said this morning, it's a bureaucratic, lethargic response. FEMA is like the DMV on steroids. It's a big bureaucratic, like they respond to everything like an overweight manatee on a heroin drip. And it is absolutely pathetic. And don't forget that the rest of the world is looking on and sees this pathetic American response to our own disaster as too. We're in dangerous waters, folks. For those of you still voting blue, no matter who, you might want to rethink that in these last few weeks and try to get beyond that and really see what might be best for the country. Because, that could be your family floating down a river someday. And you will be the victim of the bureaucratic DMV non-response. And the fact that we don't have money for that, but we have money for Ukraine and all these other countries all over the world. We even sent hundreds of millions of dollars to the Taliban, for Christ's sake. And we can't help Americans. Sad day. Pay attention. We'll be back next week. As always, keep the blue side up.